and Jerry. Hello. City Manager Jerry Ducay is on with us. Sir, if you would like to go ahead and go next with some updates with the city and, all that fun stuff.
Well, not much has been happening in the city. It's been pretty quiet. As you may have noticed, the mayor issued a proclamation on Monday, and that garnered a lot of attention yesterday and is continuing today. That proclamation was in response to the governor's executive order. The governor had issued one of 3 orders late last week, and I was reading so much chat on the bottom, sorry. And the governor's order provided for a relaxation of some of the previous standards as they related to the religious organizations and as they related to what they deem non-essential businesses. And so the city then looked at the governor's executive order and looked at our disaster declaration, and we took the opportunity to bring about the proclamation, which was intended to explain how it is that we plan on enforcing or interpreting our existing declaration in response to the governor's changes. And so what we did is we concentrated on a couple different areas that were specific. There was 2 groups. One group was enacted immediately that related to the houses of worship, in that those houses of worship that cannot provide video and audio services can provide in-facility services. We were on a conference call with our Ministerial Alliance, which represents pretty much all of the houses of worship in town. And it was pretty clear that they're going to continue to provide the remote access for their congregation. The second issue, though, that was part of that was the elective surgery is now open and once again can continue. That was pretty direct from the governor's executive order. And the reason for that is the availability of hospital beds continues to be robust. In Tarrant County, we have over 50% capacity, and only 4% are used right now for COVID patients. So the third issue related to the gathering of groups or individuals. And previously, our declaration had provided that groups of 10 or less could congregate, but that they all had to be related. And now that has been amended to say they do not require that they be related. So you can have a group of 10 or less that does not require them to be part of the same family. Those took effect immediately on Monday. The other 3, which has gotten a lot more attention, which is probably the subject of a lot of your questions, have to do with the businesses, and those take effect on Friday. Again, there's 3 areas identified. The first relates to retail establishments that are, quote, hands-on. And these are the salons, the massage, the spas, even you could argue the trainers, all of the different, what we have previously called hands-on type businesses that require personal contact. Those businesses were always allowed to provide transactions over the counter or delivery or pickup, where you could buy something, a product, a gift card, whatever. And so now those are allowed to continue to operate, but by appointment only. And so they're not open to the public, but they do have appointment limitation allowances that give them the ability to serve a customer. And so the explanation we gave in our FAQ document is that you should limit that appointments to something like 1 person for every 200 square foot of facility space. Now, that does not include employees, because employees are already there anyway operating, because they've previously been able to do so. And of course, it would not include any minor children that may be with an individual that cannot be separated or left alone. And so that's that issue. And we've got a lot of calls from salon owners who have expressed concern that their licensing does not allow them to operate through their interpretation of the state's regulators who license them. And our comment has been, well, certainly they should do what is best for their business. And if they have a regulatory agency or an additional requirement from another group, they should follow that and do what's in the best interest of their individual business. This is the same thing as if you have a tenant agreement or an HOA agreement or some type of an association agreement or even employment contract provisions wherein you must abide by other rules and regulations that are beyond the city's purview. Well, you would honor those regardless of what the city says. And so I explained it to most very simply that the city allows you a use per zoning. The state allows you a use per licensing. Those are mutually exclusive, but both are part of your dynamic for your business. The city, if the city does not provide you zoning, but the state provides you a license, you cannot operate. If the city provides you a zoning and the state does not provide you a license, you cannot operate. But those two are not related to each other beyond your business interpretation as to how you operate. And so that was a big conversation, and it was certainly a concern of a lot of business owners. We've been discussing that. The second aspect related to the traditional retailers and how they would operate, you know, like the clothing stores and others who are, again, non-essential and are open. And again, those were also allowed to operate by appointment only, again, using the 200 square foot criteria. And so you could have somebody make an appointment to come into a clothing store and to purchase an item and then to leave. We felt that was very similar to the ability to come in and transact over the counter anyway. And it was a small step in the direction of heading toward opening without opening to the general public. The third issue related to restaurants, this one's been a little bit misconstrued. The governor's executive order did not deal with the issue of outdoor patios or cafes. It only dealt with the interior of the restaurant. And so what we did is we said, those restaurants that have outdoor patios can use that for the customers to consume food and I guess drink as well. And so we said, this is a way that businesses can allow for someone who picks up food, who wishes to sit and eat it, who presently is probably eating in their car, to sit on tables and chairs that are out there. But a restaurant, if they desired, could provide service out there as long as their employees use proper PPE and there's appropriate separation for the customers. We don't think a lot of our restaurants are going to hit that ground running too quickly because there's a lot of ramp up with their operation, but we wanted to get ahead of that. And so the question there from businesses is they've said, well, we've read on social media and other places that TABC could cite us regarding our liquor license for providing food in violation of the executive order. We pointed out that that is true and that would not change. However, if you notice when they write that, if you read carefully, what those individuals are saying is that if you operate within the restaurant, serve within the restaurant, you would be in violation, and that's true. They don't differentiate on the patio issue. And if you read the governor's executive order, nor does the governor. And so the next level of commentary is from those who then say, well, then you're just simply in violation of the governor's order. And so we recognize and respect that opinion. And so the governor actually had a news conference yesterday and was talking about various issues. And at the end, he was answering questions from the press. And a member of the press, as the last question provided, asked the governor specifically in a very loaded way. Basically, the reporter said, Colleyville is flying in the face of your executive order and violating it. And what are you going to do to address that? And the governor answered basically by saying that he believes that he had read our proclamation, he was familiar with it, and that he believes it is in line with his executive order, and it was in keeping with his directives. So we now have, and we've also been contacted by the state attorney general, who's offered any help. But the bottom line is that we are clearly going to follow the governor's order. If the governor says there's something we've done that oversteps, we will gladly address that. If the governor clarifies and we need to change direction, certainly we'll do so. We believe the governor and the president are the appropriate individuals that we must follow, and we do so to the best of our ability. Our interpretation of what the governor's executive order said is just that. It's how we believe the executive order would be applied to Colleyville specifically. We're not saying it's what every community should do, and we're not saying that interpretation doesn't result in differences of opinion. and we respect different opinions. But at the end of the day, we feel that we're acting appropriately, and that's why we've stated what we stated. I do believe the governor is probably has already stated he's going to come out on the 27th, and I believe he will probably at that time be a lot more broad-based in his approach as to how he's going to begin opening businesses. And so we have no inside information to that. We have no way of knowing what the governor is going to say, but those seem to be the indications of where we're heading. And so hopefully I've given you some good information, and I can answer any questions that you might have with regard to this whole conversation.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jerry. I appreciate you joining us here today as well. If anyone has any questions for Jerry, if you would like to raise your hand, I've got you all here and I can unmute you as well. And if not, that's also lovely. That means he answered all of our questions. All right. Okay, Miss Barbara. I'm sorry.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much, Jerry, for that update. So a point of clarity, so I understand, like the hairdresser or beauty salon, are the customers required to wear a face mask and the hairdresser required to wear a face mask? I'm assuming they are?
That's correct. Customers are not. We have recommended that the employees have proper PPE. In that particular case, it would be a mask. And if they wish, obviously they can wear gloves. We do not require the gloves, but that is up to the individual.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Jerry. On massage therapists, there's been some confusion. Is that the licensing issue that you were talking about?
Yes, we're actually getting calls from some salon owners which have actually said that we're destroying their business, which I find interesting. And their argument is that by giving them and their customers the choice, somehow it's been putting a burden on them that is unreasonable. The individual salon owners are not beholden to the city as to how they operate their business. They operate their businesses just like each of you do, independently. And so some of them have expressed concern that they have other agency regulations, or they may have franchise regulations, or they may have landlord regulations. And certainly, and they've said, well, are you telling us to violate those? And of course the answer is no. They should operate in the appropriate way that they've always done so. And so a lot of those things you're talking about, Jason, relate to licensing from other agencies. I've even heard of associations where they're professional associations giving them advice and direction, and they feel compelled, and they should certainly do whatever is in their best interest and appropriate for their business.
Excellent. Thank you, Jerry. And so basically the issue there is the city is now the possibility city-wise that they can operate, but it's still up to their discretion if they would like to do that, obviously based on their licensing and regulations on that side, correct? Just
yes.
To reiterate that.
Yes, and one of the concerns that we've heard from businesses is that a lot of them can't simply just open and pick up where they left off. They've got labor issues. They've certainly got supply chain issues for their vendors, and they've got real challenges as to how they operate. And so we're trying to provide additional opportunities to incrementally allow them to start that preparation process. And so the governor, I think, is trying to do the same thing. But it seems to me that it is likely, I don't know it to be true, but it is likely that the governor is going to open up most of the businesses with appropriate distancing and appropriate protections in that first week in May. And so I'd really hate for a business to hear that and then say, now I need 2 more weeks to ramp up. And so if we're starting to at least give them, in my opinion, these previews of what's to come, it gives them a chance. I had a business owner tell me today, she's struggling because her employees are making more money on unemployment than they did working for her. And she's struggling to get them back until unemployment ends. I thought, wow, I never even thought of that, And so there's different things that each of your businesses encountered that we wouldn't know. We're not here to tell you how to run your business. We're just telling you our interpretation of how you should consider our declaration and how it should be interpreted as to what you can and cannot do going forward.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. And as I'll know,